Chapter 1. The morning bell rings. Time 6:00 a.m. The year is 1349. The air is colder than it should be for spring, and outside the wooden shutters of your chamber, a mist hangs low over the village rooftops like a mourning shroud. You open your eyes to dim, dusty light. It filters through the cracks in the warped wooden boards above your head. Your straw-stuffed mattress crinkles softly beneath your thin linen sheet. You've slept little. No one sleeps soundly these days. A soft cough escapes your lips. You pause. Just a tickle. Perhaps the straw. You dare not read more into it. Not today. Not after what happened next door. Your home smells of smoke and old wool, but underneath it lingers something fouler, an acidic stench, like spoiled meat, and sick. It's soaked into the thatch and timber, impossible to scrub out now. Even after your mother burned rosemary and thyme in every corner, even after she hung garlic over the lintel, even after she was taken away, outside, a bell begins to toll, slow and hollow, one long ring for every soul departed. 1, 2, 3. The sound is heavier than metal. It feels like it falls into your bones. The bell rings every morning now, like a morbid rooster call. You rise. Your clothes are stiff from damp and the sweat of restless nights. You pull a wool tunic over your shift, wrap your feet in scraps of cloth. There are no shoes. The cobbler's wife died last week, and he hasn't come out since. You step quietly down the ladder to the main room. The hearth is cold. No one lit it. Your father used to rise before you, before first light, to stoke the coals and boil a pot of gruel. But your father's gone too, shut in the grain barn outside the village, locked away after the fever took hold. He hasn't moved in days. You try not to think about the silence. Your younger brother is curled up on a pile of old sacks in the corner. His chest rises and falls. You're grateful for that. You step over him gently and unlatch the door. The outside world is washed in grey. The sun tries to rise, but the sky refuses to clear. It's a world drained of colour, like the sickness has bled it pale. The street is empty. No chickens cluck. No carts roll past. Just a dog nosing through a pile of rags that might be clothes or might be something else. You hear it again. The bell, still tolling from the chapel at the hill's edge. A long line of black shapes moves toward it. Hooded monks and shrouded bodies on carts. The churchyard is full. They've begun digging deeper trenches now. You saw it yourself 2 days ago. Pits big enough to swallow families. There's no more space for headstones or last rites. You turn and walk past your neighbor's door. A red cross is smeared over it in thick paint, dried now. Underneath, the words "Lord have mercy." They've been there for a week. No one has seen them come out. No one dares knock. Your steps are soft in the muck. The road slick from night rain. Ash and wet straw mix underfoot. A crow watches you from a fence post, head tilted, unblinking. Further down the lane you see smoke curling from a chimney. Old Agnes still lights her fire. She's half blind, and some whisper she's a witch, but she has onions, and knows how to dry herbs. You nod respectfully toward her door. Another bell chimes, this one smaller, from the east of town. That's the death cart. You hear its wheels groaning over the ruts in the road. A boy with a cloth wrapped over his face walks beside it, calling out, "Bring out your dead, bring out your dead." You freeze in place as the cart passes. It is piled high, too high, with shapes wrapped in cloth. One hand dangles loosely from the top, pale, stiff fingers. You don't look long. The boy doesn't stop at your door. Not today. You still have time. Behind you a rooster crows once, late and hoarse. Maybe it too has lost its sense of rhythm. You begin walking toward the chapel. Not for prayer, you've said the same prayers for weeks, and watched nothing change, but for answers maybe, or a moment of warmth. As you walk, the fog begins to lift, and the sunlight reveals what you wish it wouldn't. More crosses, more silence, more eyes watching from shuttered windows. A town waiting to die, but still the bell rings, and you keep walking. Chapter 2. Death in the streets. Time 8 a.m. The sun has risen, though not in warmth. It hangs low like an old coin, dulled by soot and ash. What little light filters through the morning mist does not illuminate. only exposes, and what it reveals is a world unraveling. You walk carefully through the narrow street, head down, feet quiet. The road is still wet from the night, and the puddles are slick with strange oils, residue from burning tar, blood or worse. No one really knows anymore. No one wants. The shops that once bustled with noise, laughter, haggling and gossip, now sit shuttered like tombs. The baker's door has collapsed inward. Mice pick at the loaves left rotting in his window, hard as stone, and green with bloom. Beside the door is a wooden sign, broken and hanging by one nail. It swings gently, creaking, above a child's drawing of a sun smudged by weather and time. You step over a dead pigeon in the road, its feathers scattered in the mud. It looks peaceful, keener than most deaths these days. Further ahead, you hear the sound of coughing, violent, wet, and gurgling. A woman sits slumped in a doorway, her back against the stone, legs folded under her like a broken doll. Her face is flushed, dark with fever, and around her neck, a rosary clings to sweaty skin. You freeze again, not from pity, from fear. She doesn't look up. Her mouth moves, muttering prayers or names or nonsense. Her hands twitch in her lap. You see the bobos, large, black swellings rising from under her jaw and underarms, stretching her skin taut, like fruit left to burst. The stench hits you a moment later, sweet and putrid, the smell of rot in living flesh. No one helps her, no one can. A monk approaches from across the square. His hood is pulled low, and in his hands he carries a wooden ladle dipped in tar. He walks in silence, dipping the spoon into a bucket. As he passes each doorway, flinging black streaks of pitch against the walls, it marks homes as cursed, homes as visited, homes as forgotten. When he sees the woman, he pauses, just a sec. Then he marks the stones behind her with a thick black X and walks on. You do too. To linger is to risk. To touch is to join. The marketplace is just ahead, once the heart of the town. Now it's open. You remember when these stalls overflowed with apples and honeycomb, with fabrics dyed blue and red, with clumsy songs from traveling minstrels and curses from merchants shouting over each other. Now the stalls are skeletal, torn canopies flap in the wind. A wheelbarrow sits overturned in the mud, its contents spilled and abandoned, onions, spoiled turnips, a cracked jar of salt. Beside it lies a boot, still attached to a foot. You turn away. The town constable used to patrol here, fat and red-faced, tapping his baton on cobblestones like a clock marking order. But his post is empty. Last seen coughing behind the Guildhall. His body was never found. Instead, the marketplace belongs to the desperate. Now, a pair of rag-wrapped children dig through a pile of cloth and bones. One is barely older than your brother. They glance at you quick and hollow-eyed. No one speaks. A dog howls in the distance, long, lonely, like morning-made sound. You pass the tannery. The air sharpens with the chemical tang of urine, lime, and a decay. No one works inside now. The vats are still, scum floating atop them like skin on broth, but the smell remains, the stench of centuries soaked into the stones. To your left, a cart rolls through the street. It is not the death cart. This one carries firewood, not for warmth, for burning. You've seen it before. The barrow of a man named Edric, who now makes his living hauling fuel to the pyres. His face is covered, but you know it's him. You know by the you once shared a crust of bread with him behind the chapel wall. Now he won't meet your eye. In the square's center stands the fountain. Its marble once glistened with lions' heads and clear water. Now it's dry. The lions' mouths gape wide and toothless, as if howling in silence. A shroud of grey cloth hangs from the stone lip. Someone's cloak, forgotten, or left behind in panic. Beside the fountain is the gallows, not used for hanging now. It's become an altar of sorts, a place of sacrifice and desperation. Someone has laid offerings at its base. A loaf of black bread, a child's doll, a folded letter, sealed with wax. You don't know who placed them. You don't know what they hope for. Overhead, the sky shifts from mist to haze. The color is somewhere between lead and but. As you leave the square, a cry rings out from an alley behind the apothecary, sharp and short, followed by silence. You quicken your pace. You don't want to know. The street narrows again. You pass homes with windows broken outward from inside. You remember who lived there. You remember their names. But you don't say them. Names are dangerous now, like spells or curses. A boy runs past you barefoot, eyes wild. He holds something clutched to his chest. A scrap of meat, a piece of bread. He disappears around the corner like a rabbit chased by wolves. You wonder who he took it from. As you turn back toward your lane, you see the chapel on the hill again. The bell no longer tolls. It stopped 15 minutes ago. A silence more terrifying than the sound. You know what comes next. The digging, the weeping, the silence. Chapter 3. The House of the Dead. Time, 9:00 a.m. The bell has gone quiet, but its echo still shivers through the stones. The silence that follows is heavier than sound, heavier than grief, because now it is time to go home. If you can call it that. The door groans on its hinges as you push it open. The same door you once ran through, laughing with your brother when the world still made sense. When bread was warm and blankets were soft, and the worst thing you feared was a scolding from your father. Now the house smells of boiled nettles and old sickness. It hangs in the air like a veil you can't take off. The rushes on the floor are damp and strewn with broken stalks, stained with things better left unnamed. Your mother sits by the hearth, though the fire is cold. Her eyes stare into the ashes like they still hold warmth, or memories, or meaning. She hasn't spoken since the baby died. She just sits. The baby was only 3 months old when the fever took him. His name was Thomas, though no one says it now. He died at night, just after the cock's third call. No priest came. No last rites were said. Your father buried him in the garden behind the well, beneath the elder tree, with nothing but a rock for a marker. He told you not to watch, but you did. Your brother sleeps in the loft above, or tries to. He hasn't eaten in a day and a half. The bread ran out yesterday, and the rats chewed through the last of the flour. He's been coughing in his sleep, sharp, like something inside him is breaking with each breath. You lie to yourself and say it's the dust. You lie better than you used to. The walls of the cottage are thin. Every sound from outside leaks in. The scratch of carts on the road, the howling of dogs, the weeping of a mother 3 houses down. She lost her 3rd son last week. She still cries every morning. It's become part of the rhythm of the village, like the crow of the rooster or the tolling of the church bell. The hearth once gave life to this room, its orange glow dancing across the timber beams, lighting your mother's face while she hummed and stirred the pot. That pot now hangs empty. There is no stew, only a crust of charred greens at the bottom, scraped and boiled a second time, until even the rats sniffed and left it be. You sit beside her. She doesn't turn. Her hands are folded in her lap, and her fingers twist at the ends of her apron. An old habit, a nervous one, but her eyes are dry. Grief has no more water to give. You look to the corner where your father keeps the shovel. It leans crooked against the wall. The same shovel that buried Thomas. The same one used to cover the neighbors' bodies. When the cart never came. You wonder if he's already thinking of digging again. And for who? Your little sister sleeps in a bundle of wool beside the fire. At least you think she sleeps. She hasn't made a sound since last night. You reach out and touch her face. She is warm but pale. Her breathing is shallow. Her eyelids twitch like she's lost in dreams she can't wake from. Or perhaps she knows. Perhaps she's halfway between this world and the next, clinging to lullabies too faint to hear. You swallow and pull the blanket tight around her. Behind you, your father enters. His boots are caked with soil. His shoulders sag lower than you've ever seen them. He looks older now, not just tired, withered. Like the plague eats years as easily as flesh. In his arms is firewood. Not much, but enough for tonight. Enough for a few hours of warmth. He drops it near the hearth, without a word. His eyes pass over your mother, your sister, then you. No one speaks. He lights the fire. It catches slowly, hesitantly, as though it too fears what it might reveal. The flames lick the logs and begin to warm the stone. Shadows spring to life again, long and flickering, like ghosts of all the things this house has lost. You almost weep at the sight of it. The warmth, the light, the memory of normal. But then your father kneels beside the hearth and speaks. "We'll go to the healer tomorrow," he says, voice rough. "If she's still taking visitors." You nod. He means your sister, though he doesn't look at her. He can't. He doesn't mean the real healer, of course. The real one died 3 weeks ago. He means the old woman by the brook. The one with jars of herbs and strange tokens on her walls. The one people only visited in whispers. Now they go openly. Now they have no choice. Your father reaches into his cloak and pulls out a bundle wrapped in He unwraps it slowly. Inside are 2 small apples. Worm-bitten. Soft. But they are food. Real food. He gives one to your mother, who blinks slowly, as though she's only just remembered what hunger is. She takes it and begins to eat, mechanically. The second apple he cuts in half. Half for your sister. Half for you. You thank him. Then without a word, he sits against the far wall and leans his head back. His eyes close, though he doesn't sleep. No one sleeps like they used to. Outside the wind rises. It whistles through the thatch and shudders the door. You imagine the village, each house like yours, full of fear, silence, and the awful weight of waiting. Because that's all anyone does now. Wait for the bell. Wait for the cough. Wait for the digging. Chapter 4. The Child Grave Diggers. Time 11:30 a.m. The sun is up now, but no one dares call it a good day. The light offers no warmth, only a cruel clarity. It spills across the dirt paths of the village, glinting off rusted nails and broken tools, baking the plague flags nailed to doors until they crack like old skin. And in the churchyard, beside the crumbling stone wall covered in ivy, you and 3 other children stand with shovels in hand, barely taller than the tools you carry. You are not here to play, or to mimic the men of the village like you used to. Today you dig because no one else, because most of the grave diggers are already in the ground. The air smells of earth and rot, not just the soil, the bodies. Shallow graves and hurried work have made the churchyard a garden of sorrow, where each mound is still soft, still damp, still warm from the last visitor laid to rest. Your hands are blistered. The handle of the spade has no mercy for a boy of 10, but you grit your teeth and drive it into the earth again, and again and again, because you have been told. The body comes after lunch. The body is small, just a girl. The others don't talk much anymore. There's Peter, who once dreamed of becoming a blacksmith. His father's hammer hangs rusting on the forge wall. There's Matilda, who hasn't spoken since her sister died in the night, and was taken before dawn. And there's little John, only 7, but already he knows how to measure out a grave, how to close the eyelids of the dead, how to ignore the buzzing of flies. Each of you works a separate patch of earth, but you all feel it, the quiet weight of purpose. There are no funerals now, no eulogy, just holes. How many have you dug? You've stopped counting. At first it was strange, then horrifying. Now it's just another task, like gathering firewood or fetching water, except sometimes the corpses are smaller than a bundle of logs. The priest used to say a blessing over each grave. Now he simply marks the name, if there is one, and moves on. More often than not, he writes child, unknown, or infants. Sometimes the bodies come without names, found on the road, wrapped in old shawls, left like forgotten bundles at the gates of the abbey. You remember the worst one. It was a month ago, or maybe last week. Time no longer means what it used to. The child had no arms. You never found out if that was from disease or wolves. You cried then. You all did. The priest told you. He suffers no longer. You wanted to believe that. You still do. Today's grave is shallower than it should be. The earth is hard, full of roots. The shovel hits something solid, stone or bone. It's hard to tell. You flinch and Matilda sees it. She pauses, wipes her face with her sleeve, and starts digging beside you without a word. It used to take 2 hours to dig a grave. Now it takes 30 minutes. Not because you're faster, because there's no time for depth. The earth is too full. There's talk of digging deeper trenches, mass graves. But the priest says that is only for cities, as if that makes it better. You break for water. Your father gave you a small flask before you left, filled with stale rainwater. You sip it sparingly. It tastes of smoke and copper. You pass it to Peter, who nods his thanks but doesn't speak. His lips are cracked. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. None of you have. Your reward for the work is not bread or coin. It is survival. The adults have begun relying on the grave diggers. On you. You are now as necessary as the baker once was, or the healer, or the smith, except you are still children, and your eyes still seek comfort in the sky. though it offers none. A cart arrives, drawn by a mule that looks ready to collapse, its ribs sharp against skin. A man in a dark cloak steps down and lifts the bundle from the back. The cloth is faded red, tied with twine at the ends. It is small, very small. He carries it toward the hole you just finished and lays it gently on the ground. No one cries, no one wails. Not anymore. You ask, name. He hesitates. Isolde, he says. She was 5. That is all. The priest arrives. A few minutes later, panting from the walk, he nods to you and makes a hurried sign of the cross. He mumbles a prayer, so quiet you wonder if even God heard it. Then, as if to move things along, he gestures. You and Matilda lower the bundle into the ground. It lands with a soft, terrible thump. And then, the earth returns. Scoop after scoop the dirt falls. It buries the cloth, the shape, the life. It takes only 5 minutes. Too quick. The dead deserve more. But you cannot afford time. You tamp the top with the back of your shovel. The man thanks you. His eyes never meet yours. The cart turns and leaves. You mark the grave with a wooden stake. The priest scrawls the name with charcoal. Isolde, age 5. Then you begin again. There are 2 more bodies expected before sunset. Chapter 5. The Last Friend. Time, 1:00 p.m. The sun stands directly overhead now, casting short, cruel shadows. Heat rises off the packed dirt streets like the breath of some invisible beast. It is the warmest part of the day, when the still living crawl into shade, and the dead begin to stir in their graves, not by magic, but by memory. You are alone now. Peter was taken by fever 3 days ago. Matilda vanished before dawn yesterday, her pallet empty, her shawl gone. No one speaks of where children go when they disappear like that. Some say the woods, some say the river, some say worse. Little John is dead. You helped bury him this morning, a shallow hole behind the church because the graveyard is full. And now, it's just you. You sit by the well, your shovel leaning against the stone. Your hands are cracked and dirty, your nails black, your skin a pale brown mask of sweat and soil. You sip from your flask. It's nearly empty, but the water burns your throat. You feel hunger, and it coils in your gut like a worm. But the hunger is dull now, familiar, like the sound of bells tolling, or dogs barking in the night. It has been hours since you last heard laughter. You can't even remember the sound. Your body aches. Your eyes sting. You've started to forget how old you are. The other children, the ones who survived, keep their distance. They look at you like you're something else. Not a child, not a grown-up. Something in between. Something dangerous. You're the boy who digs graves. The one who sleeps beside the dead. But even that title doesn't feel right today, because you no longer have a friend. You met Tom when you were 4. He was the miller's boy, born with a crooked eye, and a laugh like a goat's bleat. The other children teased him, but you didn't. You liked that laugh. It made things feel warmer, lighter. You spent summers together stealing apples and chasing frogs, daring each other to climb trees and sneak into the priest's cellar. Once he gave you half a rabbit he'd caught raw and scrawny, but he swore it was a fee. You roasted it on coals and ate it in silence, both of you pretending it tasted like roast duck. He was your first real friend, your only one in the end. And now, Tom is dying. He lies in the back room of the abandoned bakery, curled on a bed of sap. His skin is slick with sweat, his breath rattling like a broken bellows. You found him there just after noon, after the bell rang for mass, but no one attends mass anymore. The priest gave up weeks ago. He just tolls the bell out of habit, or maybe Tom's eyes flutter open when you step inside. He tries to speak but coughs instead, a dry, brittle sound that shakes his whole body. You kneel beside him and wipe his forehead with a piece of cloth you tore from your tunic. It's filthy, but it's all you have. He hasn't the strength. I saw my mother, he whispers. She was standing in the corner. You glance. There's no one there. She had no eyes, he continues. But she saw me. She saw me just the same. You nod. You don't tell him the truth. There's no point. Let him see what he needs to see. I'm cold, he murmurs. You lie beside him. The room smells of dust, ash and faint rot. A crow watches from the windowsill. You glare at it, until it flies away. Tom's fingers grasp your sleeve. weak, trembling, like a leaf barely hanging on. I don't want to die, he says. And you say, then don't. But it's a lie. You both know it. The fever takes him in the late afternoon. You hold his hand the whole time. He doesn't cry. He doesn't scream. He just fades, like smoke from a snuffed candle. You sit there long after he stops breathing, long after the flies come, long after the sun begins to sink. You cannot cry. There are no tears left. Only dust. Only dust. The grave must be dug. Your limbs are sore. Your mind is fog. But the shovel is still there. Wait. And this time, you do not rush. You dig slow, deep, proper. You bury him under the old tree, the one you used to climb when you were small, the one where you carved your initials and his, crudely into the bark. You wrap him in your own blanket. You mark the grave with a rock, and on it you place a stick. Then you stand there, as the sky turns from gold to bruised purple. The wind stirs the leaves. You whisper, goodbye, and then you are alone. Truly, utterly, alone. Chapter 6. Bread or Blood. Time, 4:00 p.m. The sun has begun its slow descent, but it offers no mercy. The village still swelters, its bones groaning under the heat and hunger. Your stomach is a hollow drum, your tongue is cracked, and the gnawing inside you is no longer hunger. It is desperation. You haven't eaten since yesterday. No one has. The baker's oven has gone cold. The grain stores were emptied weeks ago. Even the rats have grown thin and wary. Mothers boil nettles and leather boots. Children chew grass and sip puddle water. A girl your age bit into a stone, convinced it was bread. Her teeth snapped like twigs. She bled for hours. You've seen worse. And now, you are faced with a choice. Bread or blood. You wander toward the square, past shuttered stalls and broken carts. The market is dead. Once it bustled with smells. Fresh loaves, salted fish, honeyed figs. Now, it stinks of rot and regret. Flies dance in the air, dogs bark without reason, and always the silence of the missing. A group of villagers huddle near the fountain. What was once a place of joy, a gathering point for gossip and games, is now something else entirely. You see it in their eyes, feral glints, red rims, faces pulled tight with hunger. They've caught a thief, a boy, no older than 10. You recognize him, Martin, the tanner's youngest. His feet are bare, his clothes torn, his lips split. In his hands, clutched tight like gold, is a heel of bread, stale, cracked, precious. Someone roars. Someone spits. A man, red-faced and hollow-eyed, strikes the boy. The bread falls trampled underfoot. Martin screams. You freeze. No one stops them. Not the priest. Not the constable. Not the boy's mother, who stands crying behind the crowd. They are hungry, and hunger is cruelty's excuse. It was bread. It could have fed someone else. They say this, over and over, like a spell to justify the beating. But you know the truth. It wasn't about the bread. It was about fear, about power, about choosing someone to suffer more than you. Because if he is suffering, then you are safe, at least for a moment. The crowd begins to chant. They want punishment, or perhaps just the illusion of control. The constable lifts his club. Martin sobs. Something inside you shifts. No. You step forward. You do not know why. You are not strong. You are not brave. You are small, and thin, and alone. But your feet move, dragging you between the boy and the man with the club. The air turns still. The crowd stares. What are you doing? Someone hisses. You don't answer. You don't know. The constable glares down at you. Move aside, brave boy. You shake your head. Silent. Then whack. The club finds your side. Pain blooms across your ribs. You collapse. Gasping, the world spins. You hear the boy run. You hear shouts, but you stay down, breathing dirt, tasting blood. You saved him, maybe, or maybe you did. Later, in the alley behind the butcher's shop, you find Martin. He holds the bread still. He offers you half. You nod. Together you eat it, slowly, reverently, chewing every crumb like it's the last thing on earth. It tastes like ashes, but it is warm in your belly. For that night, you return to your corner of the world, the shed behind the church, where the grass is thin, and the ground is soft. You lie on your side, arms curled around your bruised ribs. You stare at the stars peeking through a broken shutter, and you wonder, how long before someone comes for you? Because if a child with a crust of bread is an enemy, then what are you? A boy who sleeps near graves, a boy who defied the crowd, A boy who still has just enough hope to fight. You shiver, and somewhere, deep in the distance, the wolves howl. Chapter 7. The Devil at the Door. Time, 6:07 p.m. The sun is dying, bleeding across the thatched rooftops like a wound. A hush falls over the village. Not the peace of twilight, but the pause before a scream. Something is coming. You can feel it. In your bones. In the breeze. In the way the crows go silent. Your ribs still ache from the blow. Your stomach growls for more. But something worse than hunger now prowls the evening. Something older. Something hungry for soul. The bell in the chapel tower chimes once. Clang. A heavy, dragging toll that does not echo. It just hangs there. Dead. A funeral bell for someone not yet buried. You sit up. Outside your shack. The village is still. Too still. Not even the dogs are barking now. You've lived your whole life near death. Born in the graveyard shadow. Raised among stones and whispers. You know when it draws near. You can feel it in your skin. And tonight, death is moving. Not with scythes or swords, but on hooves. The old men whisper about the devil's hour, that between the sunset and the last star, a shadow roams the roads, a black rider, faceless, cloaked in smoke and silence. He doesn't knock, he waits, he chooses, and he always picks a house where a child is dying. Your feet carry you to Widow Ansel's cottage. The door is open. No one in the village opens their door at night. Not anymore. Inside, the fire has gone out. The air smells of sickness. A bitter, rotting stench. You step through the threshold, whispering an old rhyme for protection. Words your mother once muttered when you were burning with fever. They do not help. The widow sits by the hearth. Her hands are folded. Her eyes are wide. Her mouth is open. But she does not speak. She does not blink. She is not asleep. She is waiting. You hear it. A whisper. Then a creak. You turn. At the back of the room is a cradle. Small, carved from ash wood. In it, the child stirs. Baby Tom. He's coughing. His skin is slick with sweat. His eyes are wide and wild, darting not at you, but at the ceiling. You look up, and you see it. A shadow taller than any man. Long fingers, too many fingers. Eyes like candle flames, swaying and hungry. A mouth full of teeth, but no lips. The air grows heavy like molasses. You cannot move. You cannot scream. The creature leans forward and the child begins to cry. Not loudly, but a soft, rasping sob, like he's choking on air. The widow still does not move. You finally find your legs. You run, out the door, into the cold, into the dark. But the dark follows. You don't make it far. The village square is empty, but not alone. The devil is there. He wears no cloak now. His shadow stretches across the stones like a living stain. No one else sees him. They're all inside, shutters bolted, candles snuffed. But you see, and he sees you. Boy, he says. His voice is not a sound but a feeling, a tremor in your soul. You are not meant to be awake. You stammer. He's just a baby. He smiles. That mouth. All babes are sweet, he says. Especially before the rot sets in. You back away, but your feet sink into the earth as if the ground wants to keep you here. With him. Then, a bell rings again. Once, twice, 3 times. The church bell. A sound sharp and clean. A wound of noise. The devil recoils, hisses, and with a blink, he vanishes into the fog. You fall to your knees, alive, but not untouched. Later that night, you find Father Merrin inside the church, sweating and pale. His hand trembles around the bell rope. I saw it, you whisper. He nods. So did I. Why does it come? For the dying, for those without prayers. He lights a candle and hands it to you. Keep it near tonight. And every night, you take it, though your hands shake. Outside, the air is still thick, but the feeling is gone. For now, you return to your cold straw bed. You place the candle by your side. You do not sleep. Not that night. Not for many nights. Because you know now. The devil walks. He does not knock. He waits. And you have begun to wonder if he is waiting for you. Chapter 8. The Orphan's Bargain. Time, 7 p.m. The candle burns low beside you. Each flicker dances like a spirit. upon the walls. But the shadows do not retreat. They curl deeper, watching, whispering. It's been days since the devil came, but he never truly leaves. Not when he's seen you, not when you've seen him. In the village, mouths move carefully now. Doors stay bolted earlier. No one speaks the devil's name, not aloud, not even Father Merrin. He merely clutches his rosary with white knuckles and says, "Pray, and do not wander." But tonight, you must wander, because tonight, you're going to the hill, the one behind the forest, the one where they say, the old witch lives. It's not bravery, it's desperation. You haven't eaten in 2 days, not properly. The scraps thrown to you were already half rotten. Your skin and bones now, just another mouth that burdens the living. And the candle Father Merrin gave you, it burned out yesterday. You feel it already, the cold returning. Not outside but in, the kind that sinks into the marrow, that makes you dream of teeth in the dark, and screams swallowed by silence. So you go to her, the old crone, the orphan's last hope. They say she was once a nun, long ago, cast out when she began to speak to ravens. They say she sees futures in the blood of beasts, that her eyes are milk white. But she sees better than any man. You don't know if the stories are true, but hunger drives you. So you step through the thorns, guided by moonlight, and the distant sound of owls. And there it is, a hovel of stone and bone, smoke curling from a chimney shaped like a twisted horn. You knock, once, twice. The door opens by itself. There's no fire you can see, just heat, rising from the floor like breath. Strange herbs hang from the rafters. Bones clatter gently in the wind that shouldn't be blowing, and in the corner, she sits, not as ancient as the tales say, but old, wrapped in wool and crow feathers, eyes like fog, voice like soil. So, she rasps. The little candle snuffer comes crawling. You blink. How do you? I told him not to send you, she hisses. The priest, the coward, he'd rather light candles than face flames. You say nothing, because she's right. And because you didn't come for arguments. You came for a bargain. You came for a bargain. I want protection, you say. From the thing. The one who waits. She cackles. He waits for everyone. Even me. But fine. Say your wish. I want, not to be afraid. She leans forward. You'll trade fear, she says. Child, fear is what keeps you alive. But I'll give you a gift. A charm. A cost. What kind of cost? The smile fades. You're an orphan, she says. You have no name, no coin, no inheritance, but you have something more precious. She reaches forward and taps your chest. Dreams. You step back. You may not remember them now, she continues, but every child has them, and you'll need them one day, on some distant morning, when the world might be soft again, when you could become something other than what they expect. What happens if I give them up? You'll forget the sun ever warmed your face, she says. You'll forget your mother's voice, even in dreams. But you'll walk safely in shadow. Your lip trembles. She waits. The wind howls once through the door, and you nod. You nod. She moves quickly now, draws a circle in ash, pricks your finger with a needle of bone, mixes your blood with oil and violet root, and chants old words, words that itch in your skull. You feel it drain from you. Not pain, not blood, but something lighter, something brighter. And when she's done, she ties a black thread around your neck. At its end hangs a small bone charm. Keep it always, she whispers. And what if I lose it? She shrugs. Then you'd better run. You leave before dawn. And already, something inside feels dimmer. The village greets you not with suspicion, but with silence. A few of the other orphans glance at your neck. Some nod. Barely. Others turn away. They've made bargains too. You're not the first. And won't be the last. And won't be the last. That night, you lie beneath your blanket, staring at nothing. You wait for the shadow to return. But it doesn't. The devil walks. Yes. But not for you. Not tonight. Still, when sleep comes, it is dreamless. Black. Empty. You are safe now. But you have paid. And one day, when the world asks who you wanted to become, you will not remember. You gave that future away, for silence, and a string of bows. Chapter 9. The Feast of Ashes. Time 10:00 p.m. The wind carries a smell of wet stone, burning wood, and something far older than either, the kind of scent that clings to the bones like a half-remembered nightmare, a perfume of rot and regret. It is the smell of a world slowly coming undone. The feast is set. The table is long and uneven, crafted from rough-hewn timber stained by years of blood, salt, and spilled ale. The scent of roasting meat fills the room, but it doesn't ease the hunger. No, the hunger is something deeper now, something that twists and gnaws at your very soul, more gnawing than the gruel you've survived on. Tonight's feast promises something different, but you wonder if you're ready for it. You've heard the stories, the feast of ash, the ritual of sacrifice, of gratitude, of hunger for more than just food. It is the last great tradition, whispered among the villagers, known to few, feared by more. It's said that the Feast of Ashes is not just about what's served, it's about what is left behind, the offering. Tonight, the people gather in the hall, as they have done for countless years before you. In the flickering torchlight, their faces appear masked, in shadow, features drawn taut by the weight of hunger, by the strain of poverty. The feast is not a celebration. No, not here. Here, the feast is an offering, an acknowledgement of what they've lost, of what they will lose. The priest stands at the head of the table, his eyes bloodshot from drink and lack of sleep. His voice carries weight, though it cracks beneath the burden of old age. He blesses the food in a voice that trembles, eyes darting nervously to the empty chair beside him. It is there for the one who will not return, the one who made the bargain. Your own chair is empty, but not by accident. The others look at you with a quiet kind of pity. They know you are the one who has made a deal, the one who will live, who will survive, but for what cost? As the meal begins, a stew is passed, rich with game meat, potatoes, and root vegetables. Your stomach growls louder than the rest, but you do not dare to touch it immediately. Not yet. For tonight, the ritual begins with an offering of silence. No one eats. They merely stare at their bowls, knowing, and then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the priest picks up the bone spoon. His fingers tremble as he digs it into the thick, steaming stew. A deep silence falls over the hall, heavy as a burial shroud. He lifts the spoon, and the last drop of broth drips onto the ground. The offering, with that small gesture, the deal is sealed. The table shifts from solemnity to frantic eating, as the rest begin to eat quickly, as if trying to bury their hunger, to bury their shame. No one speaks, but the sound of chewing, of swallowing, is maddening, filling the space, like an orchestra of desperation. You hold your spoon, and the warmth from the stew almost makes you weep, but you don't touch it. Not yet. Somewhere in the shadows, behind the flickering firelight, a child watches, a child whose face is veiled with a mask of innocence and sorrow. They are the next offering, the next to become the price of ashes. You've seen them before, the orphans, the ones who disappear, the ones who never return. The feast goes on, the meat is passed, the bread chewed with desperation. The air thickens with the scent of salt and fat, but through it all, the silence gnaws at you. Finally, the priest rises from his place. The wooden chair creaks beneath him, and he moves toward the center of the hall, where the fire blazes high. The light dances in his hollowed eyes, his hand trembling as he raises his cup to the rafters. A blessing for the one who goes now. The words are a prayer, but the child remains silent, and you realize, somewhere deep, inside, what the offering truly is. The deal, the bargain. It is the sacrifice of innocence, the price of a life, a dream, a future. It's the children, the ones that could have been, that will never be. They are taken, just as you were, just as you will be. The night wanes. The table is now silent, save for the sound of gnawing and the crackle of the fire. The last of the stew is scraped from the bowl, the last of the bread dipped, the last of the ale swallowed. The feast of ashes has ended, but the price will always remain. Later, when the fire burns low, and the wind carries the faintest hint of cold, you sit alone by the hearth, staring at the embers. There's no warmth in them now, only the slow, inevitable flicker of time's passage. The priest leaves, and the others follow in silence. Only the child remains. Their eyes never leave you. And now, you understand, the bargain isn't just with the witch, or with the people, it's with the world itself. A world that promises nothing but ashes. And you are one of those ashes now. Chapter 10. The Wretched Kingdom. Time, 11:00 p.m. There is no throne, no gold, no glory, only the illusion of power, bought with the blood of children. The night deepens, thick and black, like oil poured over the village. Beyond the last embers of the feast hall, the air grows colder, heavier, dense, with whispers from the trees, whispers that sound too much like voices. You step outside, boots sinking into wet earth, as a bell tolls in the distance. 3 slow, mournful chimes. This is the hour of remembrance, the hour of the wretched kingdom. It is not marked on any map. No banner flies in its honor. No knight returns to sing its praises. And yet it exists, woven into the very soil you walk on. It is the kingdom you serve without knowing. The kingdom that rules not with laws but with silence. It is poverty, dressed in the robes of tradition. It is cruelty, disguised as divine order. And its crown, it sits heavy upon the heads of those who suffer and never speak. You follow a narrow dirt path, leading away from the village, up toward the ruins on the hill. The trees loom like the twisted ribs of some long-dead beast, bones of the past. You climb slowly, passing stone markers, graves perhaps, or warnings. Each is marked with a single carved symbol, a hand without fingers, a crown cracked down the middle, a mouth sewn shut. At the summit, the ruins of the old keep rise from the earth, like a corpse clawing its way from a grave. It was once a fortress, or so they say. Now, only its skeleton remains, walls split by frost, towers broken like rotten teeth. The central hall collapsed under the weight of century, yet something still lives here. You feel it. This place was called Kingdom Hollow. The legend goes that it was ruled by a child king, crowned at birth, never allowed to speak a word. He was a symbol, a puppet used to justify tithes, to command labor, to keep the peasants loyal. The real power sat behind the throne. The ministers, the clergy, the merchants. They feasted while the king starved. They chanted prayers while the king whimpered through a sewn mouth. No rebellion ever came. The people believed the king was sacred, that his suffering was divine. So they fed their own children into the system. Generation after generation, suffering became holy, pain became the price of life. When the king died, they say, he was buried beneath this ruin, upright, his crown nailed to his skull, his mouth still sealed shut, and still the kingdom lives on. You cross the threshold, into the keep's broken hall. The wind moans through the stones like breath from the dead. In the center a throne still stands, cracked, moss-covered, its seat sunken from the weight of ghosts. A rusted crown rests atop it, untouched for centuries. You approach. There is no ceremony, no guards, no audience, only this crumbling seat and the knowledge it represents. For you realize now, the wretched kingdom is not a place. It is a cycle. It is every child forced to labor before they can read. Every girl promised to a man twice her age. Every boy whipped for failing to till frozen soil. Every mother who buries a child with dry eyes because there are no tears left. Every priest who tells the hungry that starvation is salvation. Every lord who taxes birth and death alike. You have lived in this kingdom all your life. You kneel before the throne, not in reverence, but in mourning. You place your hand upon the stone, and feel the cold pulse of history beneath your skin. It does not want you to remember. It wants you to obey. Suddenly, you hear footsteps behind you. You turn, heart pounding, but it's only the child from the feast. They have followed you here, barefoot, eyes wide. They do not speak. They don't need to. They are the next ruler of the wretched kingdom. And you watch as the child steps onto the dais, stares at the cracked crown. It is too large for them. It would fall over their ears, blind their eyes. And yet, you know they will wear it. One day, because no one will stop them. No one will save them. The cycle turns again. You leave the ruins in silence, descending the hill, as the bell tolls once more. This time, 4 times, 4 tolls, for the 4 truths of the wretched kingdom.
1. Pain is power. 2. Silence is law. 3. Children are currency. 4. History does not forgive. You return to the village, not as a child, not even as yourself, but as something else, something broken, something aware, and that is far, far more dangerous.
Chapter 11. Sleep no more. Time 12:00 a.m. Midnight. There is no sleep where suffering is eternal, only the illusion of rest, and the mercy of forgetting. Not the mothers who rock them with cracked hands and hollow songs, not the fathers who stare at the fire, teeth clenched against hunger and shame, not even the dogs outside, who tremble as if sensing something crawling in the soil beneath them. And certainly not you. You lie awake on the dirt-packed floor, your body aching from the day's weight, your ears ringing with the echoes of the wretched kingdom. Every time you close your eyes, you see the cracked throne, the nailed crown, the silent child, the ruined kingdom still ruling through obedience and fear. Tonight, sleep is not a gift, it is a battleground. You toss beneath the woolen shroud, the air is still, heavy, no breeze stirs the holes in the thatch above, even the lice seem still, clinging to your skin like second thoughts. Then softly it begins, whispers, they come from the corners, from under the bed, from the dark hearth, where only cold ash remains. You know they are not real, you know they are only memories clothed in voice, but still you listen, because they speak truths no one dares say aloud. They bury them with broken toys, they feed the rats before the children. She died with a cloth in her mouth, so she wouldn't wake the priest. He fell into the grain pit because he hadn't eaten in 2 days. The baby was born in silence, and stayed that way. You sit up, you are not alone. Around you, other children stir, not from sleep, but from the same haunting unrest. Some cry without sound, some scratch at invisible things. One stands quietly in the corner staring at the wall, muttering the name of a sister who died 3 winters ago. These are not nightmares, this is memory, this is life, this is what childhood means here. It is why the children never sleep. You leave the longhouse, barefoot, stepping into the frigid night. The stars have disappeared, hidden behind thick clouds that press low like a ceiling trying to crush the world. The moon offers no light, only the coals in the ash pit still glow, like dying eyes. You wander the village, and now you see them. The night children, they are everywhere. Some sit beneath carts wrapped in cloaks, rocking back and forth. Some dig in the frozen earth, searching for roots that aren't there. Some wander in circles, humming songs that were never written. All of them have the same look, wide, sleepless eyes, skin stretched thin by cold and worry, fingers twitching from old fear. This is the hidden hour of their kingdom. No adults see it, they believe their children sleep, but you know now none of them ever truly do. You follow one girl, she cannot be more than 6. She walks toward the chapel, barefoot, a doll, clutched in one hand, just a bundle of rags, tied together with straw. You call to her, she does not turn. Inside the chapel she kneels before the altar, whispering a prayer you do not recognize. But this is no plea to God, it is a promise. If I stay awake, she won't come back. You look behind you, there is no one there, but still, you understand, because sleep is not safety, not here. Sleep is where the pain comes back, where the dead rise, where the rats speak, where the priest's hand still where the hunger becomes teeth and gnaws at your soul. The children have learned to protect themselves the only way they can. They do not sleep. Midnight stretches on, as if time itself hesitates. You return to your cot, but your mind will not rest. The whispers follow you. They curl beneath your blanket, climb behind your eyes, burrow into your dreams. And when, at last, you do drift into unconsciousness, it is not rest, it is surrender. You dream of a world made entirely of straw houses, rivers, even people. Everything burns slow and silent. You try to scream, but your mouth is stitched closed. You try to run, but the straw beneath your feet collapses. You fall into a black ocean, and at the bottom, sitting upon a throne of bones, is the child king. He lifts his stitched face toward you, and opens his arms. Stay away. You jolt upright, gasping. Still, midnight, still no sleep. Outside the bell tolls again, 5 chimes, but it is not 5 o'clock, no one rang it, and yet every child stirs, because they all heard it, and they all understand what it means. The night is not over, and sleep is never safe. Chapter 12. Games of the Damned. Time 1:00 a.m.
the hour of forgotten laughter, where toys rot and laughter dies. The children play their cursed games. The hour drips slowly like wax from a dying candle. Outside, the wind has gone still again, almost too still. The silence is unnerving, not peaceful, not quiet, just watching. But within the longhouse, movement stirs. One child giggles, softly at first, then louder. Another claps their hands. Another begins humming a strange little tune. You rise bleary-eyed, head pounding, and realize the children are awake. Worse, they're playing, not normal games, not cheerful ones. No tag, no hide and seek, no hoops or hobby horses. These are games of the damned, born from pain, raised in shadow, taught in hunger and fear. The first game begins with the hanging stick. A girl ties a bit of string to a crooked twig. On the end, a lump of dough, not real dough but mud shaped like bread. She dangles it before the other children like a prize. Who wants to eat tonight, she says. The others crawl toward it, mouths open, eyes hollow. She jerks the string back. Each time they come close, cackling cruelly. One boy finally lunges and bites it, mud squishing between his teeth. He chews, weeping, and says, "Best thing I've ever had." Everyone claps. The game is over. Next comes Rat King. A circle is drawn in the dirt. The children sit around it, legs crossed, heads bowed. One child is chosen to be the Rat King. They're blindfolded and given a tail, a rope of knotted rags tied to their belt. They must crawl around the circle, sniffing, hissing, pretending to gnaw at the others. The others chant, "Who gnawed the grain? Who chewed the child? Who rules the holes where truth is piled?" If the Rat King touches you, you shriek and fall still, dead, in their game. But one child, just a little too quiet, doesn't move when tagged. The Rat King gets angry. They shove him hard. The boy doesn't get up. There's silence. Then someone laughs nervously. He's good at playing dead, but you know he's not playing. No one stops the game. You stumble outside, trying to escape the twisted lullaby of shrieks and laughter. But the games follow you. In the barn, a group of children is playing priest and penitent. One child wears a cloak made of old sackcloth. He walks tall, hands clasped like the village priest. The others kneel, heads bowed. "What is your sin?" he demands, voice grave. A girl whispers, "I stole eggs." Then the Lord shall take a finger. She holds up her hand. He pretends to chop it with a wooden spoon. She cries out, over-dramatic and shaking with false fear, until the priest says, "And now your tongue, for lying." She runs. The others laugh. The priest chases her into the dark. He doesn't come back. Yet later, by the dying embers of a fire, you see one final game. There, it's exactly what it sounds like. They dig a shallow pit. One child climbs inside and lays still, arms crossed. The others cover them with dirt, gently at first. "Don't breathe too loud," one says. "The worms will find you." You're about to shout, "Stop, he could die." But before you can, the child bursts from the soil laughing wildly. Everyone claps again. It's just a game, except, the last time they played it, no one dug the child back up. They never mention that. Yet you sit on a stump trembling. You remember the games you once played, chasing fireflies, pretending to be knights, building castles from mud and sticks. But here, in the black mouth of the Middle Ages, childhood doesn't survive. It warps. It festers. The games these children play are masks for grief, for trauma, for horror. They laugh. Yes, but only because it's the only sound they're allowed to make that isn't weeping or screaming. They don't know these games are cruel. They think they're normal. They have no idea the world isn't supposed to be like this. As the hour wanes, the games slowly end. The children, tired not from joy but from despair, slink back to their straw nests. A few lie quietly, humming the melodies of their twisted fun. One small boy curls beside you. He looks up and asks, "Do you want to play the next game?" You whisper, "What is it?" He smiles. "It's called Wake the Dead."
Chapter 13. Plague in the Cradle. Time 2 a.m. When pestilence whispers. The sickness doesn't knock, it slips in, quiet, like mist, and never leaves alone. It's breathing, wet, strained, heavy, coming from the far side of the room, where one of the smaller children lies wrapped in a blanket that reeks of damp straw, filth, and something else. Decay. You approach without meaning to, drawn by a dread you can't explain. The child is shivering, face pale and glistening, dark rings circling their eyes like bruises left by unseen hands. They cough, once, Then again, a rattle, low and loose, bubbles up from their chest. A thin stream of vomit dribbles from their mouth. And then you realize, this isn't a cold, this is plague. The Middle Ages feared many things: wolves, witches, warlords, but nothing sent entire villages fleeing into the forests like the plague. And now, in the pitch black of this forgotten longhouse, you're trapped inside a cradle of sickness. The signs are clear now. The girl beside the fire has bleeding gums. The boy in the corner hasn't moved in hours. One toddler's body is covered in purplish splotches. God's bruises, they called them, where blood has pooled under the skin. The air is thick, sour with fever, sweat and urine, a stench so foul it clings to your lungs. Every breath is a prayer you won't fall next, but prayers are no armor, not here. A woman enters the hut. She is no doctor, just the midwife, haggard and hollow-eyed, but the only one willing to touch the dying. She carries a sack of dried herbs and a cracked wooden bowl filled with ash and lard. Her tools of healing are crude, singed nettles, crushed garlic, and whispers to saints long since death. She touches each sick child's forehead, muttering charms. When she gets to the baby, the one with the rattling breath, she pauses and silently begins to cry. She knows, you all know, there will be no saving this one. Outside, the villagers have begun to light plague pyres. You see them through the cracks in the walls, silhouettes of men dragging bodies, wrapped in blankets to the edge of the woods, where carts filled with the dead wait for their final journey. There is no ceremony, no bells, no prayers, just flame and silence. And sometimes a soft thud, as a too light corpse slides into the fire, and the wind carries the stench of roasted flesh downwind. Inside, fear turns children feral. They won't drink from the cup the sick child used. They won't sleep near the straw he coughed on. They draw invisible circles around their own straw beds with ash, believing it keeps death away. Some begin biting their nails raw. One girl scratches her face until she bleeds, chanting to herself, "It won't come to me, it won't come to me," but it does come. And then comes the sound, deep, hollow bells tolling from the chapel on the hill. They only ring them when another child dies. They ring once, then twice, then a third time. In the dark, small sobs fill the air, but no one dares cry too loud. Loud grief might draw death closer, and still, the plague crawls on. Later, a boy wakes in the night screaming that rats are crawling into his mouth. You check him, no rats, just fever, but in truth he's not wrong. It was rats that brought it, fleas in their fur, biting and jumping from corpse to corpse. You try to remember what cleanliness feels like. A bath, soap, fresh air. These things feel like a myth here, where filth is thicker than dust, and even God won't enter without a mask. Eventually, even the midwife stops returning. There's nothing left for her to do. And the dying continues, one by one, sometimes silently, sometimes violently, always, finally. Finally. A morning, or what passes for morning. 5 of the children are gone. They don't even have names anymore, just mumbled descriptions. The curly-haired one, the quiet girl, the boy with the mole. They're laid side by side near the door, waiting for the cart. The others are too weak to bury them, so they wait with the dead, sleeping beside them, whispering to them, praying they don't follow. In this hour you realize something bone deep and terrifying. These children never expected to grow old. To them, sickness is just part of the story. The cough that doesn't stop, the bruise that spreads, the fever that comes in the night. They don't ask why, they ask who's next. Chapter 14, The Devil in the Dream. Time, 3 a.m. When nightmares step into the room. At this hour, the veil thins, and through it, the devil walks barefoot, straight into a child's dream. The fire is low now. Flickering coals cast twitching shadows on the cracked wooden beams above your head. The children lie still, bundled in rough wool, but sleep does not bring peace. It brings visions, and worse, visitors. You feel it before you see it, a pressure in the room, a weight on your chest. The air grows cold but you're sweating, the silence is too loud, and then a child lets out a whimper. Another one moans. You glance around, faces twist in restless slumber, limbs jerk, teeth gnash, eyes flutter open, but not fully, half seeing, as if caught between worlds. This is not normal sleep, this is hag sleep. In the Middle Ages they had many names for it.
the mare, the night demon, the witch ride, but all shared the same fear, that something came in the night and sat upon your chest, whispering blasphemies into your dream. A child across the room suddenly bolts upright. His eyes are wide, but it's as if he's looking through you, beyond you. His lips tremble. It's here, he says. You freeze. What's here? You whisper. He points behind you and screams. You spin around. Nothing. Or is there a jape, a darker patch of dark, a shifting shadow that doesn't match the firelight? The child convulses and begins to speak in a language no one here knows. His body twists. Foam collects at the corners of his mouth. Another child wakes up shrieking, clawing at her face. She screams of hooves and horns, of a man with yellow teeth and no eyes who stood at the foot of her bed. The devil, she cries. He told me my name. The others wake in terror. One wets himself. Another bangs her head against the wall, as if trying to beat the image out of her mind. And you sit there helpless, watching a plague of dreams eat them from the inside. In these times there is no such thing as just a nightmare. Dreams were omens, prophecies, curses. If a child dreamed of demons, it meant something had found them. If more than one, it meant something had stepped through. The priest refuses to come anymore. He says the place is tainted, that the children have brought something upon themselves. The villagers mutter about the sin of the mothers, about changelings, fairy-born children swapped with human infants, who now draw the devil to their doorstep. Some of the children start to believe it. A girl, maybe 6, tries to drown herself in a trough the next day. She says she wants to go back to the sky people, so the black dog with red eyes stops whispering to her at night. They pull her out just in time, but she never speaks again. A few children start drawing in the soot near the hearth. Figures, horns, eyes, circle. No one taught them these shapes. They say they saw them in the dream, the one where they walked through the field of skulls, and a voice told them secrets no one should know, secrets about how their mother really died, about the bones under the floorboards, about what waits in the forest. You try to tell them it's not real, but how do you explain when the drawings match symbols scrawled into church walls 3 villages away? Some children now sleep with knives under their straw. Some refuse to sleep at all. One boy slits his own ear saying he wants to let the voices out, and you start to wonder, maybe it isn't fever, maybe it isn't trauma, maybe something did come through, like fire across dry hay. You start to dread the moment they fall asleep, not because of what they'll see, but because of what might stay when they wake. Some wake different. They stop speaking, or speak too much, or start laughing when nothing's funny, at shadows, at dead mice, at nothing. One whispers every time you pass. It's inside you too. The straw smells of mold. The smoke makes your eyes sting, but the worst is the sound. Scratching, always scratching, under the beds, behind the walls, in the children's throat. You tear up a floorboard one night. There's nothing, but the sound continues. Then on the 7th night, something changes. The fire goes out. No wind, no movement, just gone. And in the pitch dark, the crying begins again. But this time, it's not just from the children. There's a deeper cry, animal, hollow, low, from below. You don't sleep that night. None of you do. In the morning, a crucifix has been scratched into the door. By who? No one knows. But the nightmares stop. Just like that. No more screams. No more convulsions. The children sleep. And the silence is almost worse, because now, they dream without sound. And you know deep in your gut, the devil is no longer in the dream. He's awake.
Chapter 15. Orphaned by the Dawn. Time, 4:30 a.m. When the first light is a curse, not a blessing. At the break of dawn, the devil may retreat, but not all evils leave with the night. The sky is beginning to pale. Not sunrise, not yet, but a ghost of it. Just enough to stain the blackness with the thinnest veil of grey, and with it comes a silence that is heavier than the screams ever were. No more sobbing, no more whispering, no more frantic rustlings of straw-stuffed limbs. The children are still, too still. You sit by the hearth, your legs tucked beneath a coarse wool blanket. Your eyes are dry and burning. You haven't slept in 2 nights, maybe 3. Time here has stopped ticking and started dripping, like water off a gallows beam. A weak glow creeps in through the cracks in the shutters, and you finally dare to stand. You move from bed to bed. Not all the children are awake. Some lie curled, breathing shallowly. Others stare upward, their eyes wide but unfocused. Not frightened, just emptied. You recognize the look. You saw it once on a cow that had been struck by lightning. Alive, but not home. One boy blinks slowly when you crouch beside him. He's holding something in his small hand. A bundle of hair. Not his own. You don't ask. The older girl who used to sing to the younger ones, Maris, sits cross-legged in a corner, her back to the wall, her hands streaked with soot. You ask what she's doing. She looks up with hollow eyes and says, waiting for the sun to die. You almost smile, but you don't, because she isn't joking. One child is missing. You check the straw, the kitchen, the barn outside. He's gone. No door creaked, no scream was heard. Just gone. And nobody seems surprised. That's the worst part. It's as if they knew, and maybe in their own feral way they did. The priest comes just before dawn, not to bless the house, not to cast out spirits, but to collect. He brings a cart, and 3 strong-backed men. You don't ask questions. You just watch as they load up the mute girl who no longer speaks, and the boy with the twitching hands, and the 3rd child, who has begun writing in reversed Latin, with a stick in the ash. They'll be taken to a priory, the priest says, but no one has ever seen this priory, and no one ever sees those children again. Outside the fog is thick and silver. Some say it's a gift, God's breath covering the wickedness of the land. Others say it's a shroud. You believe the second, especially when you see one of the littlest ones walking into it, barefoot, silent. You call out, you run, but when you reach where she was, there's nothing but dew-soaked grass and a single footprint pressed into the mud. The sun finally crests the hills. It should be a relief. It isn't, because now you can see what the night has left behind. Fingerprints scorched into the wooden rafters. Burned herbs arranged in strange shapes beneath 3 of the children's beds. A small figure, carved from bone, tucked beneath a pillow, its face painted in blood and ash. No one carved that. No one human. As the light grows stronger, the children retreat from it. They pull their blankets over their heads. They whisper about burning eyes and a voice that hates the sun. You try to reason with them, but you remember what the old woman in the village once said, before she was stoned for blasphemy. The devil doesn't fear the sun, he hates it. And hate is not fear. Hate is patient. You wonder if she was right. By midday, another child is gone. No one saw her leave, but her straw bed is cold. You find a doll in her place, made of twine. Its head is missing. That night, no one sleeps. Even the bravest boys cry silently into their cloaks. The older children talk of escape, of running. But to where? The outside world is no safer. The villagers have begun to whisper too. They say the children are cursed, that they are the source, that they must be cleansed. You hear it in passing. On your way to the well, a woman clutching a rosary, muttering that the Lord has no place for demon-born soul. You look at the children, the bruises, the fevered eyes, the deep ancient sadness that no child should wear. You realize what's coming. Not just hunger, not just more nightmares, but accusation, and when it comes it will come with fire. You kneel beside the hearth that night. You whisper a prayer not for protection, but for time. Time to hide them, time to lead them away, time to get them to the forest path. The old one, the one the monks sealed off a generation ago. Because dawn is no longer a friend. It is a signal that you are running out of time. By the time the roosters crow again, you're already packing. You take nothing but a sack of bread and a rusted blade, and the children follow without asking. Because they've learned something even the adults haven't. The monsters no longer come at night. They wake with the morn. Chapter 16, A Road Paved in Ash. Time 6 a.m. Fleeing the light into the unknown. To be hunted by night is terror. To be hunted by day is damnation. The first child steps out behind you barefoot and silent, like a shadow. Then another. Then 6 more. There's no farewell. No last glance at the orphanage. Because no one dares to look back. You told them to pack nothing. Not because they don't need things, but because they don't have anything left that isn't cursed.
The trail you've chosen winds through fields no longer harvested, and hedges that whisper in windless air. It hasn't been used in years, sealed by the monks after the fires, after the disappearances, after the black dog was seen digging up the graves of children buried too shallow. The sun is rising, and with every step forward, your heart clenches tighter, because the road ahead is not marked with hope, it's marked with ash. Earth. You pass a tree with no leaves, even in spring. Beneath it, the children grow restless. One girl, too young to speak much, points upward. Carved into the bark are names, children's names, your children's names, even the ones who vanished, even the ones yet to vanish. The wood is not fresh. You do not stop to question how. You walk faster. By midday the road splits. One way leads down toward the river, wide and brown and far. The other coils up into the moorlands, toward old stone ruins no one speaks of anymore. You remember what the priest once said, after drinking too much communion wine: if a child walks the high road, the devil sees. If they take the low, the dead see. You pick the high road, because between the devil and the dead, you choose the one that might at least give you time to run. The children are weakening. One boy collapses. You carry him for a mile until your legs shake. At a moss-covered milestone, he whispers something. You lean close. He asks if you knew the road would end in fire. You lie, you tell him no. But in your bones, something ancient rattles. You know how all things end in this world. Burning, forgotten, or buried. The stones shift underfoot. A little boy falls behind. You count them again. One missing. You call out. The trees are quiet. You shout. The birds take flight. But there is no cry in return. Just a doll sitting on a branch, made of woven reeds. Its mouth is sewn shut with horsehair. You whisper his name. The wind whispers it back. But it is not a greeting. It's a goodbye. Night begins to bleed back into the sky. It shouldn't. Not yet. But it does. Clouds roll in too fast. Unnaturally black. The sun disappears before it reaches the hills. And now you feel it beneath the soil, above the trees, behind your ribs. Something is following. Not on horseback, not on foot, but in thought, like a prayer said backward, echoing through your soul. You find shelter in a ruin, an old church, swallowed by ivy, cracked open like a skull. There's no roof, only stars watching without mercy. You light no fire. The children huddle in the nave, curled beneath your cloak, their breaths shallow and sharp. One girl begins to chant. It's not a lullaby, it's Latin, but not the kind the priests taught. It's older, hungrier. You do not stop her, because for the first time the shadows pause, not retreat but watchful, as if waiting, as if afraid. You ask the girl where she learned it. She smiles faintly and touches the hollow of your neck. I didn't learn it, I remembered it. You feel the cold settle into your marrow. You don't sleep, because whatever is chasing you might not be the only thing you need to fear. By morning the clouds have broken, but instead of sunlight, ash falls from the sky, like snow, but wrong. The children do not ask questions. They simply rise, tighten their coats, and follow you again. You step onto the path, and realize it is not paved with stone, but with the bones of those who ran before you. Children, caregivers, monks, all silent now, their remains bleached by sun and memory. There is no turning back. You walk forward, not toward salvation, but toward whatever comes next. Because to go back is death, and to stand still is worse.
Chapter 17. The Witch's Teeth. Time, 9 a.m. Into the old forest, where the roots remember, the trees remember the names of children. The wind recalls their screams. Their faces are streaked with it, grey smears, like soot after a house fire. You haven't spoken in an hour. None of you have. Not since you crossed the line of standing stones at the edge of the forest. The stones weren't there before, or perhaps they were, and you simply never looked. They're tall as men and shaped like teeth, jagged, yellowed, crooked. Some are cracked. One bleeds sap the color of rust. The smallest child reaches out to touch one. You slap her hand away. She doesn't cry. She just nods, slowly, like she knew it was wrong to try. And then you step into the forest. The canopy closes above you, casting the world in green gloom. The air is thick with rot and flowers that never see daylight. The trees are enormous, ancient, their bark warped like old flesh. You feel watched, not just by animals, but by the wood itself. There are faces in the knots, eyes in the grain. You pass one tree with a hollow so deep you could imagine a child hiding inside it, or something else waiting inside it. For a child, the children cling to your cloak. You pretend you don't feel your knees shaking. A mile in, you find a circle of toadstools. Perfect, white, soft. One child asks if they can eat them. He says he's hungry. You tell him no. You say they're poison. But the truth is you don't know. You don't know anything anymore. Only that this forest has rules, and breaking them feels like feeding yourself to something with no mouth, only teeth. The wind shifts. Something changes. The birds vanish. The moss dries out. And in the silence you hear the forest chewing. Not loudly, just softly, like wet wood grinding against bone. By midday the path becomes tangled and cruel. Brambles claw at your clothes. One girl's dress is torn nearly off by a branch that moves too quickly. She says she heard the forest whisper her name. When you ask her what it said, she responds with a question. What's a mother? You can't answer. You just press forward. Suddenly, the trees open up into a clearing. A cottage sits at the center. It should look safe. It doesn't. Its chimney leans like a broken finger. Its roof sags with moss and bone. Hundreds of small bones dangle from the eaves like chimes, and when the wind blows, they tinkle sweetly. You don't want to go inside, but the children do. They walk toward it with wide, vacant eyes. One whispers, "She's waiting." Another says she said she'd make stew. You realize then, they've been dreaming of this place. And now it's real. You scream for them to stop. They don't, so you run. Inside the cottage it's warm. Too warm. The fire roars in a hearth that shouldn't work. The furniture is carved from bone. The stew pot simmers with something dark and oily, and sitting beside the fire is the witch. She's not hunched, she's not wrinkled, she's beautiful. In the same way that frostbite is beautiful, shimmering, still and deadly. She smiles with too many teeth. You don't count them, you can't. They shift. Some are long, some are sharp, some are children's. She speaks in a voice that tastes like syrup and blood. You brought me so many. I'll let you go if you leave them. The children don't resist. They stand beside her like they've always belonged. One already has a spoon in hand. Another offers his arm for seasoning. You grab the nearest one. He turns to ash in your hands. You fall back choking on the dust of his memory. The witch laughs. Not cruelly, almost gently, as if she's done this 1,000 times. You scream for the children to follow. One does, then another. 4 remain. The witch doesn't chase. She doesn't need to. She just waits. Because the forest always leads back to her. Even if it takes years. Even if it takes centuries. She is patient. And always hungry. You run until your throat bleeds. The trees part. Reluctantly. The sunlight returns like a slap. Only 3 children made it out with you. You started with 11. You do not cry. Because you've learnt the first rule of survival. Never cry where the witch can hear you. That night, as the stars return and the wind sighs through black branches, one child begins to hum a lullaby you don't know. You ask where she learned it. She says the witch taught it to her, so I'll remember what to do when I go back. You don't sleep, because now you fear the forest has planted something in them, and someday soon, it will bloom. Chapter 18. The Hunger of the Hollow. Time 12 Fadra. Time 12 PM. Beneath the church, where no prayers reach. Not all holes can be filled. Some were dug to feed. There was a chapel once. It stood at the edge of the village like a lantern at the lip of a well, small, flickering, and always trembling. But now, all that remains is a half-collapsed nave and a graveyard full of names. No one dares say aloud. You were told never to enter the chapel ruins. That there's something buried beneath. Something not dead. Not alive. Just waiting. But the villagers are gone, and the children are cold, and the chapel has a roof, sort of. So against every instinct left in your marrow, you lead them inside. The wooden doors are half rotted.
The hinges scream like something being flayed. Dust billows as you step in, thick as fog. Sunlight filters through shattered, stained glass, painting bleeding saints onto the pew. A stone altar leans sideways, cracked as though God himself tried to crawl away. The floor creaks. The children huddle in the pews. One boy finds a hymnal. He opens it to blank pages. Every page is blank. Every single one. He asks if that means God forgot this place. You don't answer, because you're afraid the answer is yes. Ye. One girl points at the floorboards beneath the altar. There's a trapdoor. It's not hidden. It's not locked. It's just there waiting. You tell her not to touch it. She does anyway. The trapdoor opens with a sigh. It smells like soil, salt, and wet iron. One child vomits. The others begin to cry. You try to smile. You tell them it's just the crypt. But even you don't believe that. Because from down in the dark, something is breathing. The children beg you not to go, but you can't leave it open. You can't sleep knowing it's open. So you descend the steps with only a lantern, and your shivering breath. The staircase is narrow, made of stone so cold it burns your fingers. You count 20 steps, then 30, then 50, then 50, then you stop counting, because your feet are no longer touching stairs, just earth. Ye. The crypt is not a room, it's a tunnel, a vast and winding hollow, burrowed like a worm's nest. The walls pulse faintly, roots wiggle in the ceiling. A damp wind blows toward you, not from behind but ahead, as though something is inhaling. You follow the tunnel. You don't know why, only that you must, and at last, you reach a chamber. Ye. It's round, huge, lined with rows of crude shelves carved into the dirt, and on those shelves are children's shoes, hundreds of them. Some are tiny, some are fresh, some are still warm. Your lantern flickers. Something brushes past you too fast to see, and then you hear it. Click, click. You spin around. The lantern dies. You can't see it, but you can hear it move. Not with feet, with hunger. It drags itself with a slurping sound, slow and wet. It breathes in stutters, like a baby learning to sob. And worst of all, it whispers your name, not aloud, inside your head, like a tongue licking your thoughts. You run. You hit the stairs blind. You scrape your knees raw. Your fingers split on stone. You claw your way back to the surface, gasping, sobbing, screaming. You slam the trapdoor shut. You break the altar trying to seal it. But it's not enough. Because now the children are looking at you strangely. Like they know where you've been. Like they hear the whisper too. One child hands you a shoe. A tiny one. One that wasn't there before. She says the creature gave it to her. Says it wants to make a trade. You ask for what? She says, me.
Chapter 19. The door with no keyhole. Time 1:00 p.m. Where memory is a wound that won't close. Some doors open from the inside. It begins with silence. Not the silence of sleep or the hush before snow. This is a silence so thick it clings to your skin. A silence that doesn't come from the world around you, but from something inside. It's the children. They don't speak anymore. Not a word. Not even in their sleep. They just watch you, like something behind your eyes has changed. And maybe it has, because ever since you sealed the trapdoor beneath the chapel, you've been seeing it. The door, always the same. A tall, black frame, a keyholeless face. No handle, no seams, just a door, standing alone, in impossible places. Once, you found it in the woods, then again, in the hearth, where fire once lived, then in the well, then in the reflection of a child's eye. And now, it waits in the chapel, behind the altar where the trapdoor once yawned. No key, no lock, just the unbearable certainty that something wants you to open it. You try to ignore it, but dreams betray you. In sleep, you walk toward it. In dreams, your hand lifts without consent. In dreams, the children kneel around it like worshippers. And in dreams, it opens, only for you. You wake with your hand on the chapel door, your feet bare, your breath steaming in the chill. The children follow, silently, always silently. They've made a circle around the altar, around the space where now the black door stands. It didn't come with thunder, or fire, or blood. It just arrived, like it always meant to. Its surface is smoother than stone, but darker than pitch. It reflects nothing, Your hand hovers near it, and you swear it grows colder the closer you come. You whisper, "What do you want?" No answer, just a feeling, a pressure behind your eye, like someone pressing fingers into your memory. And then you hear her voice. Your sister, she died in the famine, years ago. You buried her. You remember burying her, but her voice says that wasn't me. You step back. The children draw near. Then another voice. Your mother, then your brother, then people long dead, long gone, whose faces twist in the fog of your mind, all telling you the same thing. This door is where they went. You fall to your knees, because you remember the famine. You remember hiding the bread when there wasn't enough. You remember eating what you swore you buried. The door knows. It doesn't want you to open it with a key. It wants you to open it with guilt. It feeds on the past, on secrets, on the things you swore you'd never tell. And you realize that's why the children are so quiet. They've already given theirs. You were the last. The door groans. It peels inward, not outward like a normal door, but like flesh. A hot wind spills out. It smells like old wool and salt, and burning sugar. It smells like your childhood, like your worst days, and your best. The children file in, one by one, calm, peaceful, smiling, like they've been waiting to return. You scream at them to stop, but no sound comes, because the silence is in you now. You step forward, you reach for the edge. You see a hallway inside, not dark, not lit, just endless, full of doors, some open, some closed, and at the very end, you see your room. The door shuts behind you, and in the chapel, silence, total, forever. Chapter 20, The Room That Remembers Your Name. You step through the door, a cold breeze brushes against your face, and the sensation is unfamiliar, an odd, aching chill that seeps into your very bones. As you enter the room, you realize it is unlike any you have encountered before. It's spacious, yet the air feels heavy as if the walls themselves are burdened by years of forgotten secrets. At first everything seems still, a room suspended in time, but as you take another step, something changes. The walls pulse faintly, as if they are breathing. The floor beneath you shifts ever so slightly, a subtle hum of movement, as though the room itself is alive, waiting for you. Then you notice something unsettling. The room isn't just a space, it's a reflection, not of your surroundings, but of something deeper, something far more intimate. You don't know how you know this, but somehow you understand. This room remembers you. It remembers your name. You pause. The air feels thick with a presence, an unseen observer, yet you are certain it is not hostile. Instead, it seems almost familiar. The name it remembers isn't just your name, it is your essence. The room knows who you are, more intimately than anyone else ever could. The walls have absorbed every moment of your life, every word you have ever spoken, every tear you have shed. Your regrets, your joys, your fears, all have been etched into this space, woven into the very fabric of its existence. A low sound rises from the floor, a creaking, groaning noise as though the room is awakening. It's like the sound of a door slowly opening, but no door exists. Instead, the walls themselves seem to bend and twist, forming shapes, outlines, impressions, faint visions of your past. There before you appear memories, fragmented but vivid, a fleeting glance from someone you loved, a whispered promise broken, a hand you once held, now empty. It's as though the room is calling out to you, asking you to witness all you have lost, and all that remains. The air thickens, and you feel your pulse quicken. This room is not just remembering you, it is pulling you back into your past. The floor shifts again, and you step forward unsure whether to resist or surrender to its pull. Your own movements are sluggish, as though the weight of years is now pressing upon your every step. You reach out to touch the nearest wall, but the moment your fingers brush against it, the room transforms. Suddenly you are no longer standing in this strange, dimly lit space. You are transported, no, drawn into a different version of yourself, one from a time long gone, a time you had buried so deeply you thought it was lost forever. You are young again, standing in a place you once called home, though it feels so distant, so far removed from the person you've become. But in this moment, you are whole again. Your name isn't just a word, it's a key to something profound. It resonates within you, vibrating with significance. As the vision fades, you feel a momentary sense of peace, a fleeting connection with the version of yourself who still held hope, who still believed things could be different. But the peace is fleeting, quickly replaced by a heavy sorrow, because the room doesn't just remember your name, it remembers all the choices you made, all the roads you didn't take,
and all the paths that led you here. The room is a reflection of all that you are, all that you have been, and all that you might have been. The sensation is overwhelming, suffocating even. The walls now seem to close in, their surfaces shifting, undulating with memories and regrets. You try to breathe, but it feels as though the air is being stolen from your lungs. The memories grow sharper, more vivid. Your failures, your moments of self-doubt, the opportunities you missed, each one is etched deeper into the room, into your very soul. You stumble backward, but the room responds. The walls, once passive, now stretch toward you. They seem to tighten around you, guiding you deeper into your past. You close your eyes hoping for a reprieve, but the room doesn't relent. It is not simply showing you your past. It is demanding your attention. You cannot escape the name it remembers. Your name is not just a label. It is a symbol, a representation of who you were and who you could have become. And then you hear it. A voice, soft but insistent, reverberates through the space. It's not one voice, but many. It is the voice of the room itself. Do you remember? It asks. The words fall heavy, like stones into the still waters of your mind. Do you remember? The question echoes in your mind, pulling you deeper into the memories you wish you could forget. But as the question repeats, something shifts inside you. You realize that this room, this place, isn't trying to torture you. It's not punishing you. No, it's trying to awaken something inside you that you've long since buried. You stand in the heart of this place, your body trembling, your heart racing, and you finally understand. This room isn't just remembering your name, it's trying to make you remember who you truly are. And in that moment, a terrifying realization sets in. You have forgotten. You've forgotten who you really are. You've forgotten the person you were before the world broke you. But now, in this room, you have a chance to remember, to rediscover yourself. And as the room closes in around you, you take one final steadying breath.
Chapter 21. The clock that measures sorrow. The room fades, or perhaps you fade from the room. You're not sure. Time stretches, bends and blurs until all that remains is the sound of ticking, sharp, precise, unnervingly loud. With each tick, something ancient and heavy seems to shift within you. You open your eyes and find yourself standing in front of an enormous clock. Not a modern one, but a towering relic of some lost century. Its iron hands circling a face etched with strange symbols, runes you almost recognize but cannot name. This is the clock that measures sorrow. It doesn't count seconds or hours. No, this clock tallies something far more intimate. You realize this as you step closer and feel the weight of the air. It's sorrow, thick and oppressive, not just yours. Every sorrow, ever borne by a human heart, captured in the delicate movement of those massive hands. At its base, you see names engraved in brass, millions of them, some familiar, others far. A few burn like scars in your memory. People you've lost, people you've hurt, and those who left pieces of themselves with you, knowingly or not. You reach out and touch one name, and the moment your skin meets the cool metal, you fall into the memory. You're not a spectator now, you're there, reliving it. The death of someone you never truly grieved, the loss you hid beneath jokes, the friendship you let wither without goodbye. You feel it all, not in flashes, but as if it's happening again, in real time, with all the emotion you once buried. You cry out, but the clock does not stop. The sorrow continues to tick. When the memory fades, you fall to your knees, and then you hear it, a faint bell, tolling once, a heavy sonorous sound that seems to reverberate through your ribs and into your spine. It's not a sound you hear, it's a sound you remember. The clock tolls again. This time, the sorrow is not yours. It belongs to someone you never even met. A woman mourning a child during a war you never learned about. A man abandoned at sea. A girl forgotten by history. Her story reduced to ash. And you feel their sorrow, just as deeply, just as powerfully. You realize this place isn't punishing you. It is trying to teach you. Every sorrow ever lived has weight, has meaning. This clock is the universe's attempt to bear witness to all of it. But it's more than that. With each toll of the bell, you feel a shift inside yourself, a new understanding. You've spent your life dodging sorrow, trying to outpace grief, pretending the past couldn't follow you here. But now, as the clock ticks and tocks and tolls, you begin to understand. Sorrow is not meant to be avoided. It is meant to be carried on. It is proof that we lived, that we loved, that we mattered, and that others mattered to us. You stand again, The names at the base of the clock glow faintly. You see your own now, freshly etched as though it had always been there, just waiting for you to know. You touch it, gently this time, and instead of being pulled into a memory you feel something different. Acceptance. The sorrow is still there, still immense, but it no longer crushes you. It surrounds you, yes, but like a cloak, not a cage. You can carry it now. You're ready. The clock begins to tick slower, softer, not because the sorrow is gone, but because you've stopped resisting it. A door creaks open behind the clock, a passageway into deeper shadows. The bell tolls once more, not as a warning but as a benediction. You walk through, leaving the clock behind, but the sound follows you, gentle now, like a lullaby. Tick, tock. Chapter 22, The Feast of Hollow Triumphs. The air changes. You step through the door beyond the sorrow clock, and suddenly, there is warmth. A golden hue wraps around everything like the low light of a setting sun, soft and inviting. You blink, and realize you've entered a grand hall. Its magnificent, gilded columns stretch high into a painted ceiling, murals that swirl and dance with scenes of kings, saints, heroes and forgotten empires. The walls are adorned with banners, emblems of battles won, and legacies forged. This is a place of glory, of greatness, and before you stands a long banquet table, endless, lavish. Candles flicker in chandeliers overhead, casting reflections onto silver goblets and towering platters of roasted meats, exotic fruits and sparkling wine. Musicians play gentle tunes in the corners, harps, flutes, the soft rustle of strings. Every seat at the table is occupied, but something is wrong. The people seated here are not moved. They sit in perfect posture, dressed in the finest clothes of every era, silks, furs, armor, velvets, but their eyes are glassy, their faces painted in wide, artificial smiles that never touch their eyes. Their hands, though posed to toast or cut into a roast, you feel like you've stumbled into a wax museum, where the figures never stopped pretending, and then you recognize them, not by name, not by history, but by what they represent. A general who won every war but never knew peace, a queen adored by the masses, but unloved by her children, a scholar whose books changed the world but who died alone, a knight, a poet, an inventor, a prophet, each a monument to success, a triumph in human memory, and yet behind the glassy eyes emptiness. You walk slowly down the table. The smell of food is rich and sweet, but it never changes, not once. You realize none of this food is real. It's perfect, preserved, unspoiled, and completely inedible. A feast of hollow triumphs. At the head of the table sits a throne, not regal but gaudy, opulent to the point of absurdity, decorated in gold and jewels, bones and crowns, and seated upon it is the host, a figure masked in pure white porcelain, no mouth, just two hollow holes for eyes and a voice that slithers into your mind without moving its lips. Welcome, guest. You have come far to witness our celebration. You try to speak but your voice catches. The host doesn't mind. Each of these guests is a victor. Each has carved their names into the stone of time. Their legacies endure, their stories told for generations. But tell me, the masked head tilts. Do you know what they would give to feel again? With a single gesture, the host raises one of the diners, a nobleman, crowned in emerald, and suddenly, the man moves. His smile crumbles, his hands tremble, he gasps like someone waking from a nightmare. Please, he whispers, reaching toward you, let it end. I won everything. Why does it feel like I lost? The host snaps its fingers. The nobleman freezes, smile restored, arms frozen mid-reach. Victory is a poor substitute for meaning. The host whispers, legacy tastes like ash when no one truly knows your soul. You begin to understand. This is the fate of those who confuse greatness with wholeness, who traded their inner lives for monuments, who won wars but lost themselves. The host rises from the throne. You brace yourself, but it does not move toward you. Instead, it gestures to the final seat at the table, empty, waiting, carved with your name. Will you sit too? You've come far, suffered much. Shouldn't you be honored, remembered? You hesitate. The chair is velvet, inviting. You feel your legs weaken. Part of you wants to sit, to rest, to matter, but your eyes fall again on the diners. Their victory was real, their achievements undeniable, but their humanity vanished, preserved like the food on the table, never changing, never alive. You take a breath, and step away.
The host watches you go. You expect rage or sorrow, but instead, the voice echoes. Then perhaps, you still remember who you are. The hall begins to dissolve, the warmth fades, and suddenly you are walking alone, down a dark stone corridor. No throne, no music, no masks, just your footsteps, and the faint echo of the host's final whisper, "Not every crown is worn on the head."
Chapter 23. The Cradle of Screams. The corridor tightens. Gone is the opulence of the feast. Gone is the flicker of candlelight, the scent of perfumed illusion. Now, the walls narrow like a gullet, rough stone closing in on either side. Dampness coats everything. Walls that sweat, floors that groan under your steps. You feel it in your chest. This place isn't meant for walking, it's meant for crawling. And so you do. Down, down, on your hands and knees. The tunnel squeezes you until the air thins and your limbs tremble. The silence isn't silent. It pulses. There's a sound beyond hearing, like a heartbeat in the walls, steady and slow. You feel it in your palms every time you press them to the earth. Thud, thud, thud. Then you hear it, crying. Faint at first, distant, weak, like wind sobbing through a keyhole. But it grows, louder, sharper, a newborn's cry. Then another, and another. Not one voice, hundreds. Wails echo through the stone like a haunting lullaby that never ends. High-pitched, hollow, agonized. You push forward and emerge into the cradle, a vast, open cavern, circular, lit not by flame but by something dimmer, phosphorescent. It spills from the walls like milk, giving the space a pale, sickly glow. And in this eerie chamber you see them, cribs, thousands of them, each carved from bone and wood, each rocking gently with no hands to move them, and each holds something different. Some a swaddled child, sleeping, some a puppet, glass-eyed and twisted. Some hold nothing at all but air, and yet they rock, as if trying to comfort something that's no longer there. You approach one. The child inside doesn't look at you. It stares upward, eyes wide open, unblinking. Its mouth moves soundlessly, like it's crying beneath the surface of water. You lean closer, and realize it's not looking at the ceiling. It's looking at you. But through time, a voice behind you. "We all begin here." You spin around. It's the matron, or something like her. A figure dressed in veils that reach the floor, arms swaddled in red cloth, face hidden behind a mask shaped like a mother's tender smile, but made of rusted iron. Her hands clutch a rattle that doesn't shake. Before the names, before the crowns, before the sins. We begin here. You ask what this place is. She answers with a question of her own. Do you remember the moment you first knew pain? You shake your head. No one does. Exactly, she whispers. It was here, for all of us. The cribs begin to creak. The sound, mechanical, aching, builds into a symphony of unrest. Some of the cribs begin to tip. One spills over, and the baby inside shatters like porcelain. You scream, but the matron doesn't react. Many believe pain begins with memory, but it is the opposite. Pain is what births memory. She steps forward, offering her hand. Her fingers are cold. Would you like to remember yours? You hesitate, but then curiosity overcomes fear. You take her hand, and the cradle screams. The room flashes. You fall, not through space but through self, backward, deep into something darker than dream. You feel it, you hear it, the first breath, the first cry, the first terror, not of monsters, not of death, but of being separate. You feel the panic of being torn from a world of warmth into a world of cold. You feel the confusion of light after darkness, of hunger for the first time. You feel the way the universe split in two, the safe place behind you, and the empty one ahead. And in that moment, you understand. Every horror begins with separation. Every cruelty finds its root in that primal fracture, the knowledge that you are alone. When you wake, the cradle is gone. You lie curled on a floor of moss, your cheek pressed to the earth, breath slow and heavy. The wails have stopped. The matron is nowhere to be found. Only her words remain, echoing in your mind like a lullaby carved from bone. We are not born screaming from joy. Chapter 24. The Feast of Hollow Saints. You rise. Your legs are weak, your mouth dry.
The air smells of moss and iron like a battlefield after rain. The cradle is gone, but the weight of it lingers. Every step forward feels like a betrayal of something soft that you left behind. But there's no path back, only forward into the dark. A new corridor stretches ahead, arched, tall, impossibly symmetrical. The walls are engraved with names in dead languages. Some are scratched out, others are repeated. You pass one name carved over and over again, hundreds of times, saint of nothing. As you walk, the air warms. The scent changes from mold and blood to something sweet and raw. Spices, overripe fruit, honey left too long in the sun. And then, voices, gentle, melodic, inviting, laughter without humor, toasts with no cause. You hear goblets clink, and plates scrape, and forks pierce soft, tender flesh. You reach a vast hall. The feast of hollow saints has begun. At the table sit dozens, perhaps hundreds of figures draped in silk and gold, each one masked, each one smiling. A single long table stretches beyond the horizon, overflowing with dishes of surreal opulence, roasted swans whose feathers still twitch, pies that breathe, goblets filled with stars and ink, and at the center of every plate, a face, a child's face, not dead, not alive, preserved, smiling. You freeze. A masked figure waves you forward. His mask is porcelain, with tears painted beneath the eyes. He gestures to an empty seat. Yours. You came hungry, he says in a voice made of velvet. We all do. You hesitate. But the smell, it's irresistible. You realize your belly aches. Your hands tremble with hunger you didn't know you carried. A woman beside you slices into her roast. The meat glows faintly. She moans in pleasure. Her mask is made of broken mirrors. She moans in pleasure. Her mask is made of broken mirrors. She doesn't stop chewing to speak. They call us saints, she says, but saints must suffer. So we devour our own sin. She lifts a spoonful of something steaming and whispers to it, before swallowing. The man across from you pours wine from a bottle shaped like a baby's heart. He raises his glass. To the ones who gave themselves willingly, and to those who never had the choice. You hear all drink. You stare at your plate. It's empty. But slowly, as you look deeper, an image forms in the porcelain. Your face, not as you are, but as you were. Innocent, frightened, young. The face you wore when the world first hurt you. The woman beside you offers her knife. To forgive is to consume, she whispers. You shake your head. You don't want this. But your hunger grows. It gnaws. It commands. The air grows thick with incense and smoke, and the walls begin to pulse like lungs. Then the master of the feast appears. He is tall, robed in veils of crimson and bone. His mask is smooth, faceless. He raises his hands, and the room falls silent. We gather not to feast on the flesh of children, he says, but on what they leave behind. Hope, he says again, louder, is the cruelest hunger of all. He claps once, and every mask turns toward you. The walls shimmer. The saints rise. You stumble back, but the floor twists into a carousel of hands, lifting you, presenting you. Your voice dies in your throat as the air fills with chanting, feed, feed, feed. The master approaches, and places his palm on your chest. It burns. There is no salvation, he says, only sacrifice. Give us the child that still weeps inside you, and we will leave you in peace. You scream, and everything falls. You wake on the floor of a ruined church. The table is gone. Only a single goblet remains beside you, filled with salt water and teeth. You touch your chest. There's a mark burned into your skin. A perfect circle. A plate with nothing on it.
Chapter 25. The Hour of Threaded Tongues. Your breath comes in shallow gasps. The church is deathly quiet, too quiet. Not the silence of peace, but the stillness of something waiting. The saltwater goblet trembles. You rise, though your legs scream. Every part of your body feels used, not hurt. Exactly, just borrowed. As if your bones no longer remember who they belong to. You step out of the ruined church into a world that looks rewoven. The sky above you is no longer sky, but a canopy of black fabric stitched with veins of silver thread. It sways gently, like breathing. The buildings are stitched too quilted together from parchment, rags, and human skin. The wind carries whispers, but none you understand. Not yet. Then you see them. Figures walk this patchwork city, in silence. Heads bow. Each wears a mask, not on their face, but over their mouths. Mouths sewn shut with threads of gold and sorrow. They move like puppets abandoned mid-performance, strings twitching from some invisible hand. You try to speak. No sound comes. Your tongue has been threaded. You run to a broken shard of glass. Your reflection stares back, eyes wide, lips sealed by a single silken stitch, gleaming like moonlight. You claw at it, but the thread burns at your touch. It is not thread, it is memory. A voice, soft as parchment turned, whispers from behind you. Not all words are meant to be spoken, some must be worn. You turn. A tall woman stands in the street, draped in scrolls. Her skin is inked with languages you do not know, some moving of their own accord. Her eyes are hollow, not blind, just too full of sight to see the present. She is the archivist of misremembered prayers. She gestures to the thread at your lips. Each knot is a secret you promised to keep. Each pass of the needle is a vow you never meant to break. You shake your head. You want it gone, she says. Then speak your truth, but beware, the world may not survive it. She hands you a book, bound in your own handwriting. You open it. It is filled with pages of things you never wanted to say, that you hated the ones who pitied you, that sometimes you wished you'd never been born, that the monster you feared was never under the bed, it was inside you growing louder. As you read, the thread tightens. The pain becomes unbearable. The archivist watches, impassive. Truth, she says, is the only blade sharp enough to free you. You tear the thread. Your mouth splits open, not with blood, but with stories. They pour out of you, ribbons of thought, glowing and raw. The city shudders. The sky veil peels back. The stitched buildings unravel. The masked people stop. They listen, and then, they begin to speak too. Muffled at first, then stronger. Their mouths unseal. They sob. They scream. They remember. The city built of silence collapses into sound. The archivist smiles, her lips crumbling to dust. Now you are a tongue without a master, a truth without a cage. Run, you run through collapsing corridors of ink and yarn, through alleys unraveling into forgotten lullabies, until you find a door, not sewn, not locked, etched into it. Only the honest may enter the lie. You step through, and the next chapter begins. Chapter 26, A Quiet Death, and the long grief that follows. The fire has long since died, leaving only the faintest red glow in the hearth, and the lingering scent of ash in the cold morning air. Dawn should be arriving soon, but no one stirs in the hut. Not yet. The usual cacophony of waking life, the coughs, the chickens, the crunch of crusty bread, has been replaced by something far heavier. In the corner of the room, wrapped in wool and linen that no longer warms her, lies a child. Her name was Little Alice, a name whispered 1,000 times in loving exhaustion by her mother, and shouted in sharp warnings when she strayed too close to the pigs, or the open fire. She was 6 years old, maybe 7. No one kept a written record. Birthdays weren't celebrated. There was never a cake. Last night, she had grown quiet, her breathing shallow, interrupted by fits of coughing that rattled through the cramped hut, like a storm battering a wooden boat. They'd offered her sips of water with a bit of crushed garlic and honey, if there was any to be had. They rubbed her limbs with nettle poultices, whispered the names of saints they hardly knew, and begged heaven for one more day. But the fever had settled deep in her lungs, and the warmth in her eyes vanished like breath on a cold window. Alice died sometime in the night. There is no midwife now, no priest just yet, only her mother, who has not slept, clutching the child to her chest, rocking gently as though motion alone might summon her back. Her father stands near the door, looking outward into the mist that blankets the frozen fields, his hands clenched as if they might strike God himself. The other children stay silent, sensing something sacred and terrifying in the air. No one tells them to be quiet. They simply are. Death, in the Middle Ages, is not rare, but that does not make it kind.
It is not poetic, nor it comes like a thief, often in darkness, and steals not only lives but futures. For every child that falls to fever, there are 100 others, waiting in the wings of winter, and no one dares to hope too loudly for fear that hope itself might draw death's attention. The body must be dealt with quickly. The air is already too cold to preserve her, and the rats too bold to be ignored. There is no coffin, just a length of old linen, wrapped around her gently, the way she used to be swaddled as an infant. Her father digs a shallow grave near the edge of the woods. The ground is half frozen and resists him at every stroke. The shovel is dull, the handle cracked, but he digs with the grim determination of someone who has no other choice. They bury her with a small wooden doll, the kind carved from leftover firewood by a brother who had no words for grief. No funeral procession, no hymns, a brief prayer mumbled by a neighbor who had once heard Latin and tries to imitate it. No one remembers the words, no one knows what comes next, and then, silence. But grief does not end when the earth is tamped down. In the days that follow, her mother moves like a ghost. She still rises early, still makes the pottage, still stirs the fire, but her eyes do not see. Her hands often forget what they're doing and must begin again. She stops speaking, not out of anger or madness, but because language itself seems too small for the weight inside her. Her father grows quiet too. He sharpens tools that do not need sharpening. He chops wood long after the pile is high enough. In the dead of night, he stares at the place where she used to sleep, his jaw clenched, until dawn. In a village like theirs, there are no grief counselors, no time off, no candlelight vigils, only work, endless, brutal, necessary work. Grief is tucked into the folds of daily life, buried beneath chores and prayer, and slowly, it becomes a scar rather than an open wound. But it never disappears. Children die often in this world, but they are never forgotten. Not true. Alice's name will not be carved into stone, but it will be remembered in the pause before her name is accidentally called at supper, in the way her sister clutches that wooden doll tighter each night, in the silence that falls over her mother when the first snow returns and she recalls how Alice used to laugh when it stuck to her lashes. This is the final chapter of a medieval childhood, the one rarely told, because in every cottage, in every village, behind every wooden door there are echoes of small voices that no longer call, and though the world may not pause, though the church bells toll for the harvest and not the dead, grief in the Middle Ages lingers, like smoke, thin, grey, unshakable. And so the family continues, because they must, because death, like life, is not an end in this world, only another burden carried in silence.